Most retirees spend decades believing their home, savings accounts, and retirement investments will eventually pass to their spouse or children someday. They work for decades, pay taxes for decades, slowly build financial security, and assume those assets are protected as long as they avoid reckless decisions. But one of the biggest financial shocks many American families experience happens late in retirement, often during a health crisis, when long-term care suddenly enters the picture and the government rules surrounding nursing homes begin changing everything. Because once nursing home care becomes necessary, many retirees discover the system operates very differently than they expected. And for families who wait too long to prepare, the financial consequences can become devastating. Nursing homes are expensive. In many states, long-term care costs now exceed $8,000 to $12,000 per month, and those expenses can continue for years. Medicare generally does not cover long-term custodial nursing home care indefinitely, which means millions of retirees eventually rely on Medicaid if their care continues long enough. But Medicaid is not simply free nursing home coverage. Medicaid is a means-tested program with strict financial eligibility rules, asset limitations, transfer restrictions, and recovery provisions that can dramatically affect retirement savings and family inheritance plans. And this is where many families become trapped because the government does not simply ignore your existing assets once long-term care begins. In fact, many retirees are forced to spend down significant portions of their wealth before qualifying for assistance. Then after death, some states pursue asset recovery efforts against remaining property or estate assets. This catches families completely off guard because they spent their entire lives trying to build financial stability, only to discover late in retirement that healthcare costs and Medicaid rules can rapidly consume decades of savings. One of the biggest mistakes retirees make is assuming they can simply transfer assets at the last minute once health problems begin appearing, but Medicaid has what's known as a look-back period. In most cases, Medicaid reviews financial transfers made within the previous 5 years before application, if assets were transferred improperly. During that window, penalties can delay eligibility for benefits even while nursing home costs continue accumulating. This is why timing matters so much. The first asset category many retirees review before major health decline involves the family home. Now this surprises people because they assume a paid-off house is fully protected. In some situations, a primary residence may initially remain exempt for Medicaid qualification purposes under certain equity limits and occupancy rules. But exempt does not always mean protected forever. After the Medicaid recipient passes away, many states operate estate recovery programs designed to recover healthcare costs from remaining estate assets, including the home under certain circumstances. This is where families become blindsided because surviving children may discover liens, claims, or forced asset liquidation issues after believing the property was safe. Some retirees explore legal planning structures years in advance, including irrevocable trusts or carefully coordinated estate strategies, but these approaches must generally happen well before Medicaid need arises due to the 5-year look-back period. Again, this is not about hiding money illegally or avoiding lawful obligations. It's about understanding how the system works before health emergencies remove flexibility. The second dangerous asset category involves retirement accounts such as traditional IRAs and 401ks. Many retirees assume these accounts remain untouched because they were intended for retirement income, but large retirement balances can affect Medicaid eligibility calculations depending on withdrawal status, income treatment, and state-specific rules. Some retirees discover they must begin drawing down assets aggressively before qualifying for assistance. Others trigger unexpected tax consequences while attempting to reposition funds during a healthcare crisis. This becomes even more dangerous if one spouse remains healthy while the other requires care because the healthy spouse may suddenly face enormous financial uncertainty regarding future income security. Medicaid does contain certain spousal impoverishment protections in many situations, but the rules are highly technical and vary by state. Families who never reviewed these issues beforehand often make emotional decisions under pressure, and rushed financial decisions during a medical crisis rarely produce the best long-term outcomes. The third asset category many retirees underestimate involves jointly owned investment accounts, savings accounts, CDs, and brokerage assets. These accounts may appear simple while both spouses are healthy, but once nursing home care begins, the liquidation pressure can intensify quickly. Some families burn through hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a few years without realizing how rapidly long-term care expenses compound. Then when Medicaid eligibility discussions finally begin, they discover many transfer options are no longer available because the look-back period already started years earlier. This creates emotional panic for retirees who wanted to leave financial security for their children but suddenly fear losing nearly everything to healthcare costs and government recovery rules. Now it's important to understand something clearly. Not every family will face the exact same outcome. Medicaid laws differ by state asset. Protections differ, income rules differ, trust laws differ, spousal protections differ, but what remains consistent is that proactive planning almost always creates more flexibility than waiting until a crisis arrives. Many retirees avoid these conversations because thinking about nursing homes, memory care, or declining health feels uncomfortable, but avoiding the topic does not eliminate the financial risk. In fact, delayed planning often increases vulnerability because healthcare emergencies tend to happen suddenly. One diagnosis, one fall, one hospitalization, and an entire retirement strategy can change within months. This is why experienced elder law attorneys and retirement planners often encourage families to review long-term care exposure years before it appears necessary. Some retirees explore long-term care insurance, others review trust planning, some downsize strategically, others restructure asset ownership or update beneficiary arrangements. The correct strategy depends on family size, marital status, health history, total assets, and state laws. But the key lesson is timing, because once someone already needs nursing home care, many of the strongest planning opportunities may already be gone. This is especially important as Americans live longer. Longer life expectancy increases the probability that at least one spouse may eventually require extended care. And with nursing home costs continuing to rise nationwide, the financial pressure on retirement savings may become even more severe in the years ahead. Many middle-class retirees assume Medicaid asset recovery only affects wealthy families, but that's no longer true. Rising healthcare costs are forcing even moderate retirement households into difficult financial territory later in life. Families who believed they were financially secure suddenly face spend-down requirements, asset liquidation pressure, and estate recovery complications they never anticipated. The emotional side of this is just as difficult as the financial side, because surviving spouses and adult children are often forced into stressful decisions, while already coping with medical decline and caregiving responsibilities. That's why the families who navigate these situations best are usually not the ones who guessed perfectly about the future. They're the ones who planned early enough to maintain options. At the end of the day, retirement protection is not only about growing wealth, it's about understanding which risks can destroy wealth later if ignored too long. And long-term care may be one of the largest financial threats many retirees will ever face, because unlike market downturns, nursing home costs can continue month after month for years, while families simultaneously lose flexibility under Medicaid rules. That's why reviewing these three asset categories before a healthcare crisis develops could become one of the most important retirement protection decisions many families ever make. And if you want to continue learning about retirement asset protection, Medicaid planning risks, hidden IRS rules, Social Security traps, and the financial mistakes many retirees never see coming until it's too late, subscribe to Michael Retires Shield for future retirement warning breakdowns and protection strategies.